Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Truth Seeker Show. The show that is specifically designed to help us to fulfill our life purpose in this world properly. By giving information, motivation, pleasure, and healing. I'm your host, Rabbi Eliezer Karp. So get ready for some truth and a whole lot of love. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Rabbi Eliezer Karp. Hey guys, hope everybody's having a good week, God willing, amidst all the things that are happening, the backdrop of this virus, and now we got the swine flu possibly in the mix as well. Hi, I posted some videos on Facebook there that were from, by the way, I got a new sign here. Hope you, ta-da! Truth Seeker Show. Light from darkness, truth from darkness, complete darkness, and then comes the truth, right? So that's basically it. These videos, they're Torah codes, but I don't know, you guys don't respond so quickly, so I think to myself, if you're not into it, so I don't want to bombard you with things that are going to be, out of your purview, out of your grasp, or something that's just going to turn you off. I don't want to turn you off, so I think, but I'll sum up what was in them. A couple of interesting points. One was that there's a sentence in Yeshayahu, in Isaiah. I forgot the chapter and the number. I think it's 56, 9 and 10, or 58, 9 and 10. I forgot where it was, but it said something bluntly that if something about Hashem says to, I don't know if it was to say, I don't know the context. That's why I'm a little reluctant sometimes to say these things. So I'm trying to study the whole Torah. I'm still on it. Studied hard today. Went through, was in the Yerushalmi, Kesubos. That's the Masech Daman in the Yerushalmi Gemara in Seder Nashim. But in the order of women, it's the study of all the sections that have to do with the laws of women in marriage, and then ketubah is what you sign when you marry someone. It's like an agreement. It's a contract. Some thoughts I don't want to go into because it could be controversial. I don't want to get too deep in things unless I know all the answers and I can just answer everything up. So I just touch on stuff. I mean, that was a big issue. I was trying to think so hard. I'll get back to this in a second, but I was trying to think so hard. I was thinking very hard. Hard, that's another nice way to say. Hardly thinking, that's not good. I was thinking quite intensely and intently on how I can help. How can I help? I feel like I'm so helpless here. I'm trying to help. But I'm not helpless. I'm at the will of Hashem. Hashem is the boss, and He's in charge of the world, and He does everything purposefully. And I can only make certain suggestions. My heart is huge. I feel like I want to help so badly, and I can't find. I don't have the power, the influence, the whatever to do anything other than basic knowledge, which I keep going back to the same basics because I was hearing the virus, then I heard about the swine flu, then I'm hearing about the taking down the statues. I was watching the news. I was watching a little more Fox tonight than CNN. I was listening to different things, and I kind of like that. I'm going to jump around. Hang with me here. I had a lot of thoughts, and we'll iron them all out. Maybe it's a good idea to put these statues in a museum. That's a very tough decision to make. I hear the senators or people commenting and trying to figure out what to do with these statues that may be insightful of race. I don't want to say, I don't like that word racism. I don't hold by it. That word doesn't exist to me. There are no such things as races. I went through this already. I don't have to keep repeating myself, but I personally don't see it as races. From what I know in the Torah, I know that there are two kinds of people in the world, Jews and Gentiles, those that have 613 obligations and those that have 7 obligations. That's it. We all look differently. We all have different skin colors, different facial features, different heights, different attitudes, different views on life, different levels of learning, different capabilities, different tools. I don't know if I told you these tools. You have like 10 tools I once counted: the free will, intellect, imagination, memory, 5 senses, your intuitive perceptions and understanding of things, your ability to verbally communicate, your ability to movement, the 9 body systems that we have. From outward in, you got the skin, the integumentary system, the muscular, the skeletal, and the integumentary, and the muscular and the skeletal. If you put them in order of priority, you got the respiratory system, the heart. I mean, if the heart goes, you're in trouble. Actually, I once asked Rav Moshe Tendler, who's an authority on medical issues, and I'm rushing and I don't want to misquote. Let me relax and I don't want to jump around here, but this is a very crucial issue. When is someone considered dead, brain dead, or is it when the heart stops? Oh, I knew the answer, and now you don't practice these things, you lose them. I gotta think when the brain, I don't even want to say. So which is more important? And I put the systems in order. I may have to reorganize the systems, but respiratory, nervous, circulatory, you got your digestive, then you have your urinary and reproductive system, and your endocrine system, which fights all these ailments, I suppose, the virus, etc. And then, so that's the 9 areas, and then the 10th of the 10 tools that a human being has is his ability to speak non-verbally, right? Says a lot. Oh, yeah. Right? So, what was I saying? So I'm just trying to think of how I can help and what I can do, and I know the basics. I know that there are 2 kinds of people, and we're discussing that hard decision of how I get back to square one. I thank Hashem. Thank you so much, Hashem. But what to do with these statues? Let's start from scratch for a second. Let's get back to basics. Hashem creates the world. He creates man and woman, and he gave them those. He gave Adam the one obligation not to eat from that tree, and he also gave him the 6 obligations, not including the one, of course, don't eat the flesh or limb of an animal while it's still alive. That was given later to Noah. So Adam had those 6 obligations, plus that first one. I said, I got to iron all that out. He had one obligation not to eat from that tree, but he also was, I'm taught by the Torah, he was given 6 obligations of the 7 laws of Noah that Noah was later given. So, and Noah was given that other one to don't eat from the don't eat the flesh or limb of an animal while it's still alive. And then we had the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, at Har Sinai, and there the Jewish people were given the 613 obligations, and the 7 for Noah were renewed with that giving. And that's where we are. This is, you could forget about all current events. You can forget about all these technical, troubling issues and just push them aside for a second. Get back to basics. These are the basics. This is what I know. So if that's what I have to offer here, I guess that's it. I try to... I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm trying to make every action an obligation, fulfilling action. I don't know what more I can possibly do, me as one human being. I'm trying to help. I'm not a scientist per se, but Hashem did give me this week a little more clarity on those 10 mind exercises. Hold on a second. Just make sure I'm here and I'm on. Okay. All right, guys. Hold on here. Okay, so there are 10 mind exercises that I came to that have to do with logic and language and communication and how to understand truth and how to understand the Torah and study the Torah and get to the truth of the Torah and how to understand issues like this issue. So say I knew the whole Torah with a proper Masorah, an unbroken chain of teaching from that event at Mount Sinai until today, and I wanted to deal with this issue of the statues. So I would analyze it with these 10 exercises. So let me just say them to you. I haven't ironed them out yet, but here are just the titles, the shortened titles of them. The first exercise is to know the purpose of every statement. There are like seven purposes, I think, for any possible statement. Statement, question, contradiction, what do you call it? Proof, two more, but I haven't gotten to the details yet. And then you got explicit statements and implicit statements, 2 and 3. And all their truth needs. Every statement has certain truth needs in order to prove that that statement is actually true. Okay? Then you got comparing statements. Two people say something, and they're not really saying anything different, but they're using different words, and you got to determine, are the two statements equivalent? Are they complete opposites? And there's like certain outcomes, undefinite number of outcomes that there are for whenever you compare two statements, and that's that. And then 5 is syllogisms, which are the presentation of proof, right? And then you've got 6 is the different proof types. There are various proof types. I haven't counted them yet. Look like a big long kind of a list of proof types there. I once always thought it's just sense perceptions, and then the rest is circumstantial evidence, but whatever, I'll get to that. I don't want to venture on that yet. It just came to me in my head there. Just thought I'd mention it. But then you got then there's all the types of descriptions, words that describe any subject or any predicate. Any subject or any action has words that can describe it. All the words that describe reality of a subject. So any what, why, how, and then everything underneath it, all the subdivisions. So let's say for a subject you have what general category is it? Like you have like a fish. Is it a mammal or a bird, or is it there are different categories. And you have this is a marsupial, this is a this, that kind of stuff. And then you get to the why, what's its cause, what makes it function. Of course, it's Hashem, but then you have other things underneath that. And then you have the how, how they eat, how they sleep, how they live, what their death rate is, when do they usually die, and whatever, if they had to die. Again, we're trying to be immortal. I don't know if the animals will also be immortal. That's another thing. Maybe they die off. I have all these questions. I'll get them answered, God willing, one of these days. But I have an organized system as to how to approach all these questions. So, and these 10 things, these 10 exercises of the mind are going to help me do that, and hopefully will help you do that too when I teach them to you and share them with you. So then you got I put them all on a chart, so a subject chart and an action chart. And I take one action or a subject and I analyze the heck out of it, and I see every aspect of that cause and effect, every little term that describes that subject or action I put on a chart and get to the truth right away. And that's how I think encyclopedias are formed, actually. They don't know it probably, but I know that you break it down to its barest essentials, then you don't have books with a lot of verbiage in there. You don't have a lot of too many words in there. You just get down to the subject, what, why, how, action, what, why, how, all the terminology, and you just put it all on the chart. And everything in life, every creation, you analyze like that. Every existing creation and everything that they could possibly do, all their possible actions, right? Hashem also gave me this week an insight I couldn't find for my musician friends and my performing art friends. I couldn't find a better word. I never liked that word, visual art. I know there are the performing arts and the visual arts. I don't like those two. They don't sound contrary. Performing arts and visual arts, or they don't sound like two separate categories, because performing arts are visual, and here you have just visual arts. And I realized an unbelievable insight that Hashem gave me, and I am going to coin this phrase. I love this phrase. It's so simple. It was under my nose, and I did not even see it. I don't know why. Performing arts and forming arts. Forming arts and performing arts. That which is and that which does. Right? And that makes sense to me. If I had seen that on my college curriculum book when I chose my courses, I would have been quite delighted and happy and quite inspired to look in and find what courses I could take. But I couldn't quite get past performing arts, visual arts, and whatever. It bothered me back then. Finally, Hashem gave me some insight, so I know all wisdom comes from Hashem, and when He decides to give it to you, you get it. And my job is to pursue finding it, but if I don't get it, I don't get upset. I strive to find the answers, but, maybe Hashem doesn't want to be knocked out of the picture. Maybe if we humans knew too much, then we wouldn't depend on Him for certain things or whatever. Or don't worry, Hashem, we got it covered. We'll handle it. You rest and we'll take care. Like, if that's such a thing that we could say. But so maybe He forces us to only have a certain amount of information, so that and I see that with myself, because I'm striving so hard to get it all, and all I have is what I have, and it all comes from Him. So I could tell you from my experience only that what I know is what He teaches me through whatever means, So what I know is what I know. And I try to learn more, but if He don't let me get it, so it's a very sobering awareness, because you realize that we're just human beings. We don't really have any control over anything. It's an illusion, maybe. Whatever Hashem allows us to control, that's what we have the illusion to control, and He can stop that control on our part at any time. He doesn't have to allow us to continue to be in control. It says in the Torah somewhere that leaders are in control of Hashem, that you see people, don't get nervous. You have these leaders, various leaders in charge of the world, and I've always been taught that Hashem's in charge of them. So they think they're in control, and they want to be arrogant with that power or whatever. No one should ever be arrogant about anything. We should be just humble human beings, dots of free will that are striving to fulfill the purpose of life and better each day, meaning learning more wisdom, learning more Torah, learning more about this creation, the world that He created, and trying to improve ourselves every day. So, and it's a very humble pursuit. There's no room for arrogance. There's no room for what do you call it? To be domineering or dominating on others or anything like that. So whatever. Just don't get scared of people or people in power. Sometimes they look like they got things under control or not. whenever they do or don't, I still always know it's Hashem behind it and behind them, and again, what's in it for Hashem? What does he have to gain? He wants to give. We discussed this a long time ago. He wants to give fully, and we are the beings that he created to receive that giving. But in order to receive that giving, we have to earn it for ourselves. So we have to use our dot of free will to choose to do the right things and expend effort in that direction, in that pursuit. And with Hashem's help, we either get it or we don't. When he's ready, someone finds the cure for cancer. When he's ready, someone finds the cure for polio or measles. I've lived 54 years. I've seen certain things in my short lifespan. There's others that have lived longer. I know them, a lot of them. And there are those that are younger, and you have a lot of living to do. There's a song, you have a lot of living to do, I think. So you see a lot of stuff. You see how, over the years, I've watched Hashem in action as he makes things develop in his world, like the coming of computers. Wow, what a thing when the computers came out and we had to switch over, and we were, from our whole lifestyles changed, and or records. I had albums. Used to have these the 38s, 45s, whatever, and you put them on a phonograph with a little needle. I always messed up that needle. God forbid, it wasn't steady. Would scratch the record. God forbid. You had to be careful. Now we had CD. We had 8-track tapes. We had cassette tapes, 8-track tapes, CDs, little microcassettes. I'm not doing them in order probably. And now we get those little. You shove it into the computer, and it's got everything, the whole world on this one little zip, whatever you put it in there, little drive, whatever, little stick, right? Your whole life on a stick. You just stick it in there. And this is how Hashem works. He makes things, allows things, gives someone an idea. I heard Dr. Fauci's, I feel for him. I don't know what to think. I hope he just continues to be to strive for the truth and to try to find a cure. I hope he incorporates some Torah wisdom in there. I hope he incorporates the whole Torah wisdom in there so that he can know how to find the cure. Maybe it's right under his nose, and all it takes is just knowing what's what. I had a thought of I was watching a commercial of this woman, and her child had cancer or leukemia or something, and she's telling the whole story. And I thought, and I had like not a daydream, but like for a second I thought to myself, wow, if I knew the whole Torah, and I could just go up to her and look in the eyes of the child and see what the ailment is or something, and perceive what the problem is, and just and just do one little thing, or say one little thing, or make them change their cognizance or their awareness of something, and then the leukemia just goes away. It's wisdom. It's having the knowledge of Hashem's. The Torah is the blueprint for creation. I'm going to get to those 3 videos I put up. The Torah is the blueprint for creation. I believe Hashem composed the Torah first, if I'm not mistaken, and he created the world from the Torah, the blueprint. Like an architect writes out plans, draws up plans, and then creates, my uncle's an architect, creates plans and then builds a building, a structure from that plan. Same thing with the Torah. It's a document, the blueprint of creation, and from that Hashem made the world and all of us. And I'm taught from the Torah that the world was created for those who fulfill the Torah. If we're not fulfilling the Torah, then we're throwing the whole creation off kilter. And then viruses come, and swine flus, and I don't know what else to say to you guys. I'm trying so hard to tell you the truth and impress it upon you and make you realize it. And I know that too. I was batting my head against the wall here, and I was getting upset because Hashem, I'm trying so hard and they're not getting it, or I don't know what they're doing. What are they doing? And we just, I was telling on the other show, the Karp family show, I mentioned I was out with my mom. We went to Whole Foods and I saw everyone. I was driving and I saw everyone with the masks on, and I was thinking to myself, man, we all look like a bunch of zombies just out of it. Like, we don't know what the heck's going on, why we're being plagued by this, it looks like. And yet we're just struggling just to keep some sense of a normal lifestyle, something that we're used to. And I say to Hashem, Hashem, man, I don't know what you're doing to everybody, to all of us. I wonder to myself, people can only take so much, and then they get frustrated with life and things. But I trust, he knows when to push and pull, and that's, I can only watch from a distance and be amazed. What else can I say? I mean, there are times in the Torah when you can argue with Hashem, or I don't know, not challenge or contest him, but maybe ask him for his mercy or his loving kindness to do something to switch. So that gets back to the video I saw. There's one little thing there in one of the videos that said that pasuk in Isaiah, it said something like, Hashem says, I will punish them with poverty instead of death. I will punish them with poverty instead of death, something to that effect. And the Torah code, Rabbi Eliezer was trying to point out in the Torah code that that pasuk came up, or that point. He saw the word poverty, he saw virus, he saw them together, so he was interpreting with his knowledge of Torah, of that pasuk, and it was said by two other rabbis also as well, and he put it together, and he said that the virus, you look at it that way, and it's like almost the virus is a blessing, because it's not death. It could be death. To some it's death, to others it's just poverty. We're not able to work. And I guess we're trying to end that too. Again, that goes to my other point that, I heard on the news there, one of the newscasters said, we people are anxious to get to work. They want to get back to that normalcy. So it's like, Hashem, how do you balance that out? People, they can't take the virus. It's too much, and they want to get back to work, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know how to understand you and your ways. I mean, I only know what I know. I understand it. It comes back to square one. I think I know everything, and I know not much of anything. What I know that's everything is that the purpose of life is that Hashem created us in this world to earn the life of the next world by fulfilling 7 obligations if someone is not Jewish, and by fulfilling 613 obligations if someone is Jewish. And we also have 10 steps that sum up how to strive for immortality and be immortal and not die, and return us to the level of Adam before he transgressed, where Hashem intended him to live eternally. So that's what I know, and that's solid as a rock. I don't know. Everything is based on that. I don't know how long it takes for you guys to realize that. And I was saying to myself, Hashem gave me, consoled me in a way, and made me feel, all right, he's powerful. He'll do everything on his schedule, and he does it on his time, and you'll know what you need to know when you need to know it, and vice the same with me too. I mean, I know what I need to know when I know it, and I can't fight City Hall, nor can you, I guess. Maybe together, if we were all fulfilling the obligations. Look, if we were all just fulfilling these obligations, I think these viruses would just end. Zip, that would be the end. If we just collectively made an effort to fulfill the 7, 6, 13, and 10, bam, I think he would just end it. And that would be it. And you'd know there's a God after that. What else you got to do with yourselves? You want to just run around with your masks like zombies? Just shopping for essentials and then going home and feeling sorry for yourself? Watching reruns of some, fictitious show? Or do you want to put him to the test? Why don't you try this? See how this goes. fulfill the 7 and 6, 13 and 10, and make every action an obligation fulfilling action from the beginning when you wake up till the time you go to sleep. Make your sleep the fulfillment of an obligation. For us Jews, 547, don't endanger your health by not sleeping. 546, do guard your health by sleeping. You Gentiles, don't murder. You could, I don't know if people could die of sleep deprivation, but it probably could lead to other ailments. You could probably have your defenses, your immune system, your endocrine system knocked out of whack, and God forbid you're hit with a virus, and it could be curtains, and you don't want that. So you're fulfilling your obligation number 3 of the 7 obligations. Do not murder. Do not commit suicide. Do not murder yourself by sleep deprivation. So you're going to sleep. So you can make every action an obligation fulfilling action like that, whether you're eating, whether you're sleeping, whether you're conversing with your wife. It's what do you call it? Peace in the home, shalom bayis. That could be like you don't want to steal from somebody. You don't want to. Here you have a wife. You want to treat her with kindness. A happy wife is a happy life. I've mentioned before, and you don't want to murder her or yourself by. You don't want to have a frustrated marriage. You don't want to be. I thought I was going to talk about marriage at some point. I keep leading to it. I have some insights on the matter, even though I'm not married yet. But I don't know if we'll get to it today. Whatever I'm mentioning now is, so you want your, maybe it could be a slow death. A frustrating marriage could be like a slow death. You could die of a broken heart. There are people that die of broken hearts, and they're emotionally tormented by someone who's not fulfilling their needs spiritually, socially. I always go top down now. So it's spiritually, socially, mentally, emotionally, and physically. If someone's kind enough to marry you, you better treat them like a king or a queen, because they're choosing you out, they're singling you out from everybody else and letting you be their spouse, their best buddy, their friend, their confidant, their partner through life to serve Hashem, fulfill the 7 and 6, 13 and 10. It's just logical. You want to make them a happy camper. You want them to be, not feeling bad about their life with you as their mate, right? You want them to be happy. So back to these videos. So one of the videos dealt with this sentence that the virus is, he didn't come out and say it's a blessing, but I deduced that, okay, it's a not like a pardon, but it's like Hashem taking it easy on us. We could have had complete death, maybe, although then we have that pasuk that says that Hashem wouldn't annihilate the whole world again by a flood, but I don't know if he would do it by a virus. I'm taught he doesn't do it at all. That's my Masorah, that he wouldn't do it at all. I didn't really go further to find out the details of that. It didn't come up. So that's an issue. So maybe he's taking it easy on us. We think it's a harsh thing, but really it could have been a lot worse. So the way you look at stuff, one of my friends posted something, we could either be miserable by looking at everything, or we could just, I don't think he said be happy about it, but he said try to look at the bright side of things. So then I found that video and I thought, oh, they fit together. So I'm telling you both things. I put a like on my friend's comment because that was very nice. It gave people hope and helped to lift people's spirits, so we don't get some people are Debbie Downers. They look at stuff, they look at everything bad, this is terrible. But then there's another way to look at stuff. You look at everything we say in the Torah. We have to say in the Torah, Gamzu litova, Gamzu litova. Also, this is for our good, for my good. Everything is for good. No evil comes from heaven is another pasuk somewhere, or it's in the Gemara somewhere. I didn't get to it yet, I don't think. Or if I did get to it and I forgot, I have to go back and review everything. So then there's something on unemployment there. The virus causes unemployment. That was another video. And then there was a bunch of videos about the coronavirus that are in the codes and the Torah codes, and I thought you'd find it interesting. But maybe you don't speak Hebrew. Maybe you don't. I don't speak Hebrew fluently. I have a very high level of knowledge of dikduk, of grammar of Hebrew. My vocabulary is about here. If this is the whole, I'm about here. I need to improve my vocabulary, but I will do that. I'm writing myself a dictionary at a later point after I finish the whole Torah in English. I just want to get all the concepts first so that I know what I'm doing. We're going through we're practical priorities first. The practical priorities. We're going to go through the 613 in a few minutes, and I'll read for you the 613 obligations for the Jewish people. I'll read for you the number 176 through 200, and we'll know 25 more obligations, and that's the practical priority of this reality. We need to know how to fulfill these obligations. My Jewish brothers and sisters, whether you know of the Torah or don't know of the Torah, there's some people who know Torah who are, quote, Orthodox, but don't know the whole 613. Maybe they've heard it. There are a few there that slip their purview, their awareness, because they're slickly written, the obligations. I've noticed this. I memorized all 613 at one point, so I know that there are some that even my Orthodox buddies, they don't get because it slips through the cracks. I'll show you when we get to them. I don't have any examples that come to my mind right now, but I'm sure they've heard of them because of just listening to Torah lectures. Shiurim, you go to a Torah lecture, you hear a lot of stuff, a lot of Torah, and over the years it accumulates and you piece it together. It's just sometimes though it's a big jumble. That's why I'm a very organized person. Thanks to my father, he's an accountant and he's very organized, and he taught me that. And I try to go in with definitiveness. I know exactly what the general and then the specific. And the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, said to do it that way. And also, I think the Vilna Gaon spoke of it that way too. These are two authorities in the Torah. Well, the Vilna Gaon was a posek, an authority. The Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, says things within our Masorah, but I've been taught we're not sure if it wasn't known to be a posek, an authority. He said things that sounded within the Masorah, the unbroken chain of teaching, so we accepted some of those things. There's a couple of Sfarim, books by the Ramchal I wanted to get. I think I may have gotten them at one point. And then I was switching to digital. I didn't want to carry I had bookshelves of books, and then we went to digital. I know I can get this one program that has all the books on that one program. But I don't have the money. When Hashem's ready, I'll have the money or whatever. I'll get the program, or I'll make sure I get it. And then I'll go through it. It has all those Sfarim on there, every book that I could possibly imagine. But he wrote something, it's a Kabbalistic sefer, the Ramchal. I don't know if, I didn't get to ask on that one yet, but I'm sure his reputation precedes him, the Ramchal. So if he was so good with the other books, then that book on Kalach Pischei Chachma, I think it was called. Kalach Pischei Chachma. But whatever, I was supposed to study that, I didn't get to it yet. Anyway, we're going to get to the 613 in a second here. So did I finish those videos? So the video, so those were the major points. But I wanted you to see, maybe the video might be over your head a little. I mean, it's over my head in certain ways. I don't know all the words, the vocabulary. I know the dikduk, and I can tell what Rabbi Glazerson's saying to know, if everything's in line. Sometimes I have questions with certain things. And he quotes certain rabbis that might not be a posek or an authority. Whatever, I keep all that in my head, and I weigh everything out. And back to that issue with the statues. So, I covered everything here. We did a whole little connect the dots, huh? Hold on. Let me see if you guys are with me here. All right, guys. Good to see you. All right, so the statues, some people make suggestions, and I hear all the suggestions. I try to weigh it out, and that's why I went first to ground zero. So we know the purpose of life is to earn the next world in this world by fulfilling the 7, 6, 13, and 10 obligations. I call the 10 Steps to Immortality obligations as well, because it could be included in any of the 7 and 613, because it's to try to make Hashem happy. So anything that's here to make Hashem happy, whether it's a D'oraisa, D'Rabbanan. D'oraisa is those explicitly stated obligations in the Torah. The D'Rabbanan are those that the rabbis have the authority to write as obligations. They make fences for the Torah. They're permitted in 495 and 496 of the 613. Those obligations do listen to the rabbis when they make fences for the Torah. Don't disobey a Rav when he makes fences. Whatever. And then 8 minhagim, customs of the community. These are obligations too, because the community takes on an obligation that's binding on the community, and that's how that community functions to serve Hashem and please Him. So it's an obligation. Then you got eitzes. If you're holding by a rabbi, he gives you an eitzah, an advice, and you follow it, it becomes like binding. It's an obligation unless you ask in a certain way. Hey, Rav, I'm sorry, I just wanted your opinion on this. I don't want to be held to anything yet because I'm still weighing something out or waiting for information to come in. Whatever your situation is. So you got those 4 levels of law. And I think I'm including these 10 steps, even though the Ramchal's 9 to 14 steps on how to be holy are in there, and the 48 ways to wisdom, the 48 traits of someone who wants to know Torah. You have to embody these 48 traits in order to understand the Torah properly. So I put it all together in 10 little steps, which I call an eitzah. 10 eitzahs, or 1 eitzah, which includes these 10 steps. So it's all, I guess, how you look at it. I consider it binding on myself, because these 10 steps to immortality, because I want to make Hashem completely happy. So I've accepted it on myself as like an obligation. I'm striving for immortality using those 10 steps, and I'm working on it every day. So what do we do? So now you know that that's the purpose of life. So, and everyone, again, I said there's no races in the world. I don't like, these words that man has created, race, religion. I don't like the word religion. What is that? Religion. My father once told me it's a French origin, religion of the legions or something, whatever. I don't like that. This is the claim that's the truth about the purpose of life from Hashem. We Jewish people were given the Torah. We were at Mount Sinai. 3 million witnesses stood there and accepted that information. And it says in the Torah, do not add anything from these instructions, these obligations. Do not delete anything from these instructions, these obligations. Devarim 4:2 and 13:1, I believe it is. Those 2 psukim, those 2 sentences in the Torah. And from that, we know this is the truth. So now that we have the basics, the base on how to live in the world, so now what do we do with these statutes? Well, let's trace it. So there were, look, as I'm watching the news, I'm thinking to myself, I see everything, and I think, there was a commercial on, this a progressive commercial. That summed it up for me. Forgive me for being so blunt, but I think there's a progressive commercial where there's a motor. He's a black motor, right? He's on a motorcycle, and yet he's half man, half motor. And he's next to him is is a white motor, right? A white-skinned motor and a black-skinned motor. Okay, so, and they're watching all these other motors ride in, I don't know if it's a cross-country race, or I don't know, whatever it is. And it's a very subtle lesson, but in that little lesson, I think I learned a reiteration of what I had said before. And I'm now I'll put it in more gentle and loving terms, but let me just say what happened. So the white motor says to the black motor something, and the black motor says, shh, like you wanted to just be a part of what was happening and enjoy or observe the race of the other motors. And I realized right then, isn't it funny? And it would take a white mind to maybe see this. I don't know, maybe, whatever. The point is, I think the black man is uncomfortable because of all those years of slavery. Let's put him on hold for a second. What about all these Indians that had this land? You know, I don't know what Hashem's, how he distributes his land. What are his rules for distributing his land? Maybe that should be our first square one as to how to study what we should do to rectify our past. Because here we robbed this country from the Indians. I don't even know if I should use that word because I wasn't there. So I don't know. I mean, I heard there was fighting with the Indians, but I also heard there was some working together with the Indians. Maybe they were happy to see us. It depends on how you look at it. You know, maybe here the Indians are alone in America, in this land, and here we come on ships. You know, I think there was it Leif Erikson and some other trips here. I might be getting that wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I know Columbus sailed the Ocean Blue in 1492 and came here with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, right? But maybe the Indians were happy to have new company. Maybe they were all by themselves. I don't know how many people were here then. I mean, we'd have to do a big study on this, I guess, or at least get a subject analysis sheet and an action analysis. So we came here. It depends on how you want to analyze the action, you know. You could view it one way. You could view the virus as a major punishment, or you could view it as a lighter punishment where we could have gotten death. You know, so it's the same thing maybe with this. So here we steal the land, or we take the land, or we join. Maybe we're guests. Maybe they invited us, but then personalities clashed. I don't know. Maybe their ways clashed with our ways, and then somehow it's now we are the dominant people on the earth in America, rather. Excuse me. And the Indians are allotted a certain land. I don't know. You know. I think are they angry about it? How do we rectify these things? Or does this just continue on? I'll tell you, you know, I have other tricks up my sleeve, as I told you before, with the Torah and stuff, but I don't see this virus ending soon. I'm just telling you right now, this could go on for years, I think. This is just my own personal opinion. When I hear the doctors saying, I'm judging them on how much, what they think is true, what they think they can do to help, and whether they're just saying stuff to calm us or to give us hope. I don't know. I think they're missing the Torah information, these doctors, so they don't really know how to, you know, judge stuff and understand things, I think, properly. Forgive me, I don't mean to, you know, sound arrogant or anything. I don't mean to. I'm trying to help. But so I'm just giving you the truth as best as I can tell you. So I think we need to focus on the Torah and Hashem pretty darn quickly and get our lives in line so he can stop these viruses. The virus, the swine flu, whatever else is coming, God forbid. So then we got these Indians. We've got, then there were people in Africa of darker skin. I don't look at it as a race. Do I look at the Indians as yellow skin? They're not yellow. Are they brown? What are they? I don't really look to, and you can't really determine. And even white people look differently from one another. Some are olive colored. Some are very white. I don't know. Some are albino. I mean, how can you judge people on the color of their skin? Now there is that curse I discussed with you from Noah. I don't want to elaborate too much on that anymore. Just know it and keep it in the back of your mind, because we have to fulfill the 7 and 6, 13 and 10, whether we like it or not anyway. And once we're fulfilling everything, that will be rectified too. But for right now, you know, you got all these protests, you got people trying to make a statement, you know, and then I have to give myself and the Torah and the Jewish people equal time. I mean, really want to talk about injustices that have been done in the world. I mean, our Torah was stolen in the year 5-3. Was it 3-5? I forgot the year already. I have to go back. 3515 or was it 3515? I think it was the Hebrew year, because the Torah was given in 2448. And 3515, it was stolen. There was 2 attempts, and then the second attempt worked or something. They got it, and that became the Septuagint. And from that, all these religions came from it. All these claims about how to please Hashem. He doesn't want us to fulfill obligations. Then he does want us, first in the Torah, he wants us to fulfill obligations. Then with all these other religions, we don't have obligations. I mean, you're changing everything. Just get back to the simple truth of the Torah. The Jewish people came with this claim. We were the first claim of monotheism, supposedly. And even if that's not true, we still have these 7 and 613 obligations and 10 obligations that Hashem is holding us responsible to fulfill. And when we don't do what we're supposed to do, he punishes us with a virus, etc. By the way, I wanted to make note to give you the heads up. I know I'm trying to keep the show around an hour. Forgive me. We'll get to the 25 in a second, but I had a lot of topics I wanted to cover today. I want to give you the heads up. Next week, just so you know, I'll tell you another truth. I'm sorry that these truths are so hard to stomach when you haven't been living with them your entire life. But when I first had to learn these truths, it was hard to digest. The time of the year, Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, it's not just for the Jewish people. That's for Gentiles too. That's for the whole world. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Whether Gentiles atone on that or not, something's a little unclear to me, but I think Hashem judges the whole world. There are these mazalot, these, the Capricorn, the Pisces, all that stuff. I think that applies to Gentiles, but it doesn't apply to the Jewish people. We are under the auspices of Hashem completely and only, so he determines what happens to us. If we're a Capricorn, I happen to be a Capricorn in January, but the month of Tevet is in the Hebrew year. But we don't hold by that. So this secular calendar is wrong. So that's an injustice. When our Torah was stolen, so then all these other claims about God and what he wants from the human race came about. They changed our Torah. They got rid of obligations, so to speak, but they didn't get rid of them. In their mind, they lied to themselves and told themselves that, this is the new reality, and it's not. Hashem doesn't make any mistakes. He's perfect. He said, do not add or delete anything from these instructions. It's our job. I apologize if we haven't done it so well, but it's our job to teach the Gentiles that they have 7 obligations, and the Jewish people should know that we have 613, and we all have these 10 steps to immortality to make Hashem fully happy and proud and pleased and glad that he made us and created us and gave us life. Don't we want to make him happy so that he should turn around and walk away and say, boy, I'm glad I created that whole group of people. What a nice move I made with that. Wouldn't you like that to be our gift back to him so that he should say to himself, wow, I'm so happy that I created my world. You don't want him to regret it, because there have been times when he's regretted created man, and then hence a flood, and he wipes out a whole group of people. Do you want that to take place? No. So, wake up. Snap out of it. Okay, so they put the 10 Commandments in the Gentile courthouses in America and in other places too, probably. So they took our Torah, they stole out the 10 Commandments. They say there are no obligations, but they think the 10 are, it's a momentous thing to put up. They put it in their courthouse. But meanwhile, all you Gentiles are responsible for the 7 obligations, not our 10 Commandments. And the 10 are only part of our 613, for which we are responsible as Jewish people. So, you want to rectify or correct an injustice? Remove those 10 Commandments. But how do I protest? I speak to you. I try to speak from my heart, and I lovingly tell you, this was an injustice. It was done. It should be rectified. You should, Gentiles are really not even allowed to study our Torah. The Rambam considers it, the Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon considers it like adultery. It's like sleeping with our wives, taking our Torah and telling us, and then having the audacity to tell us what you say it means. Really, without an oral law, without an oral teaching, without rabbis, without a Masorah, an unbroken chain of teaching. How could you possibly know? I mean, it's an infantile thing to say. It's very juvenile. You don't realize what you're saying. I am embarrassed for you when you say it. I'm a little perturbed. I'm actually sometimes more embarrassed for you than I am perturbed for myself or angry that my Torah was stolen, because I feel that you are just acting out of ignorance. You don't know any better. And then I blame myself because we didn't teach you the truth. So I'm trying to rectify that now. So that's why I hope you take what I have to say to heart, that, so it says in the Torah not to, I don't know how the Rambam gets that point. I saw it once. I'll have to go back and look at it again. But, he says the Gentiles should just know their 7 obligations, which are in the book of Bereshis. It's the first book of the Torah. It's based basically on, I think, 1 or 2 psukim there, and they're derived and they're in the oral law and the teaching. So you need us to teach you what they are. So, I'm just letting you know that because I thought of having Torah study too on this show, but I'm keeping that on hold yet. I don't feel comfortable doing that because it's one thing. My Rav kind of gave me permission. He told me I'm teaching the 613. It's kind of vague, and yet I got all my question marks and whatnot. It's vague. It's not so definite, and yet it gives you guys, you Gentiles, an idea of how Hashem ticks, what makes him think, what he thinks about, what are his what's important to him, what are his values, his likes and dislikes, what pleases him. So that's why I'm doing it, and I know that there are some B'nai Noah groups that fulfill the 7 obligations that, I don't know if they gave their group permission to study the Torah, or they have some rabbi guiding them, or maybe they found some loophole. There could be loopholes. I judge everybody favorably. Maybe there could be some loophole that they found in order to do that. I had another point, but all right. So anyway, hold on, let me check. See, we're on here. All right, guys. So how do you decide what to do with those statues? So here we have Indians, we have black Americans, for lack of better words, I don't know how to describe, people with darker skin who seem to have been persecuted for their darker skin and came from the continent of Africa and were kidnapped by white people and brought here to be slaves. And this is very upsetting. So that Motor commercial was like the black man sticking it to the white man, and now he's bossing him around. Shh, I'm watching the rest of the Motors. And in that, it was just one sentence, but in there it summed up the entire struggle of racial relations. I don't even like that word. I gotta find a better word. I don't like race. There's no such thing as race. Bad word, bad dictionary word. I don't like the word religion. Bad dictionary word. Men came up with these words, and they're poor choices for words. I read sometimes on Wikipedia or on some other websites on the online, and they'll use words, and I know that I see that the word is a product of the limitation of their wisdom. The word is a description of the reality as best as they know, and they can't figure out a better word. So, look, I'm coming from a Torah perspective. I don't know everything, but from what I know I know a lot of general stuff. I'm in the process of learning all the specific stuff, but from what I know of the general stuff, that word race is not it's not a good word. It's inaccurate. It's inaccurate at best. How are we races? I'm not a different race than the black man. I can't even, when do we start to delineate color differences? Maybe if you see them on a spectrum, you see someone who's an albino, and then you see someone who's really dark black, right? And then you got all these shades of color all the way to, I just see it as one human race. There are Gentiles and Jews within that race that are responsible for either 7 and 613, for either 7 obligations or 613 obligations, but that color spectrum, maybe it's a healthier way to view it if we just see it as a color spectrum and we don't see it as races. Maybe those who were kidnapped and enslaved because they didn't have an education and they couldn't think of words, or they were victims to the white man's words, whatever the white man used, those words are what he had to follow, I guess, whatever. And I don't want to remind you of such a terrible thing. Again, I'll remind myself of our own slavery in Egypt and in Germany and whatever. Point is that we need to rethink words sometimes, and it changes your whole view. Language is very, 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 very important. I really am so much more sensitive to language. I'm not a master of any one language yet. I'm trying. I try to master this language. I think I try to master this language a lot more than I try to master English or Hebrew, which is not right now. I'm working. Actually, that's not true, because I'm going to get to Hebrew and really, I probably know the grammar of Hebrew better than I know any other language. I think, even my own English. And for sure, music, I'm still trying to figure out. But Hebrew, I know Hebrew dikduk pretty well. Baruch Hashem, b'lian har chas v'sholom. I should have any problems with that. Hashem should only open my mind to deeper insights. I'll give you an example of something. When you have a dogesh in a letter, there's these letters called the Beged Kefet letters. Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, and Tav. If there's a dot, a dogesh in there, and it's in a word, if there's a dogesh in there, usually it closes the first syllable and it's active in the second syllable, so it's pronounced. And I can't think of a word offhand. And then I'll tell you something else. There's like jadwol. There's the pronunciations of the letters. I think the Taimoni, the Yemenites, I think they know how to pronounce the letters with unique pronunciations, the Hebrew letters, so that each letter should have a unique pronunciation, I'm under the impression, from everything I've learned about grammar, so that these words they have then a unique pronunciation that not only for speaking and communication of a message as a purpose, not only for the purpose of communicating a message, but also for the purpose of manipulating spiritual forces. The words have to be pronounced correctly, and maybe it's a blessing that there was Ben Yehuda. I think he tried to unify the Hebrew, speaking of Hebrew for the Israelis, so it became almost like a Sephardic pronunciation, but it's not biblical. It's not from the Torah. So maybe it's best that these Torah pronunciations were confused and made vague, so that we don't start accidentally. You ever see that Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's walking around and he's saying all these? Actually, some of those words he's saying are from the Torah. I don't even want to say them, but they're Kabbalistic in origin, to my understanding, and common, like a magician would say, we're not supposed to practice magic, but he was going through this cartoon, and he was, you'd see Bugs going around doing all, saying all these things, and Daffy Duck kept changing into different, first his beak was over here, and he's upside down, and all these different things, because, and it was a little innocent illustration, though, of a very heavy Kabbalistic concept. So whatever, it's just funny that I'm just saying this because that you should be sensitive to language and the words you choose. Again, I don't want to comment on it. Black Lives Matter. I think I know what you're trying to say. I know what you're trying to get at, but and I think all the protests and the emotion behind it is summed up in that one commercial with the motor, the black motor. Those are my insights for the day on that. Nothing offensive. I don't mean to hurt anyone or make anyone uncomfortable, but I'm just trying to say. So I want to get back to the statue. So Someone said they should be put in a museum. A couple of people, some senators, some people, whatever, who maybe supposedly know the meaning of these statues. Look, if this is the purpose of life, 7, 6, 13, and 10, we have to fulfill that, and no one fulfills that, hasn't fulfilled it in the past completely, is not fulfilling them today, completely. So what kind of a history do we really have? Is it such a great history? These statues, do they, I love this country. I truly, I'm trying to give back to the country the fruits of my learning as a Jewish white person in this country. White, I don't know why I say white. Guys, I'm categorizing myself in order so that you understand my background, so that you know what I'm bringing to the table to give back. And I'm a history buff too. I appreciate history. I wonder to myself, I've done a lot of driving throughout the country, throughout the United States. I don't want to be too much on time here. I'll get to these in a minute. They don't take long, I don't think. You have Route 66, and you go through all those places, Tombstone. I don't know if it's Tombstone on Route 66, whatever. I'll have to look at my geography, but all those Western places that were significant, the OK Corral with Wyatt Earp and all that stuff. And I wonder, I looked into Wyatt Earp's past. I think his wife was Jewish, actually, that last, or he was his partner, Josephine. I think she was Jewish, if I'm not mistaken. So I had an interest in that to find out more about it. And he had an interesting past. He was a lawman, and yet he got into certain interactions that may have been thought of as possibly this or that. Or I don't want to. I'm just being vague, just to say that no one's background is so pure and so clean. So maybe having a statue of someone who has a reputation for inciting or having views of enslaving or kidnapping and enslaving other human beings, that's a violation of one of the 7 obligations, obligation number 5 of the 7 for Gentiles. So if it's a violation of that obligation, why would you want to have a statue of that individual in plain sight so that others can see? You don't want to motivate others to violate one of the 7 obligations. Maybe this is the best way to view it now. I'm starting to see. I didn't have an answer before I came to the show. I just knew what I was going to talk about. And I know sometimes Hashem gives me the answer while I'm with you and trying to search for truth with you. So maybe that's the correct way to view it. View it as a violation of one of the 7 obligations. And you want to put it in a museum? Maybe that was a better idea, to show the past transgressions of those of our history, and so that we can learn from them, so people can go by choice to the museum. Because if you don't want to see those types of things, you certainly don't want it out right in front of your face, so that you're reminded of a past time that was very unpleasant and uncomfortable, right? So maybe it's a good idea to put them in museums. Now that as you're making suggestions, I think I'm thinking it through a bit with you, and I think that's a good idea. Maybe put it in a museum. I can't think of a better idea. When you take them down, you don't have to. I saw some graffiti and things put on them, and maybe that's not so nice of the protesters. A polite question or request can go a long way. Just say politely, look, you people in power, my people find it offensive that this statue exists in plain sight in the center square right by the courthouse where justice or whatever, I'm just giving an example. Could you please remove that? You would make my people so much happier. You'd do a lot more to improve relations, human relations, not race. You would do a lot more to improve human relations with the spectrum of skin-colored people. That's a bad way to say it, but whatever. That's something in the back of your head, that we all have. We're on a large spectrum of skin color. That's Hashem in His creation of people. He made us with various skin colors for various reasons. That's his business. But, but we're all human beings, and we should all realize that we're Gentiles and Jews, and we should work together as a team to fulfill our obligations and please our Creator, and remove things that are going to get in the way of smooth obligation fulfillment and good human relations. We want everything to be smooth as silk. We want to be able to just, I had a thought today, when we all get together, I thought, when I get together with my mom or my dad or my brother, I want those interactions to be enjoyable. I want us all to be motivated to get closer to Hashem, even in just, look, sometimes I can't talk to my family about Hashem, but just when they're joyful and enjoying life to a degree, it reflects good on Hashem because His creations are happy. So if I could be a catalyst for that joy, that's like, okay, it's a lower level of the highest joy I would be able to discuss. Sometimes with my brother, my father, even with my mother, I can discuss certain things when she's in the right mood. And we talk about Hashem and life and the purpose of life and things. And that could, and if they're joyful from that experience of discussing Hashem and His Torah and fulfilling the purpose of life, and that is like the highest level of joy that we can each give to each other. And we should try to give each other joy and enjoy each other's company and build each other up and bring out the best in each other. Maybe there's a lot of lashon hara, a lot of evil speech going on these news stations. You talk about, you're not supposed to compliment somebody either in public. There's a halacha, a Jewish law about you don't want to point out someone's virtue in front of someone else. It makes them jealous. I think that's one of the points for it. I haven't seen that one inside yet. I've heard it over the years, about 30 years, I've heard that point said. So you don't want to put someone down and speak lashon hara against them. You don't want to malign them. You do not want to malign them or put them down or in front of people. You want to, especially people who are trying to work to protect us and keep the world safe from others, from other human beings, and from viruses, from all kinds of things. You want to build people up, help them bring out their best. That's what you want to try to do, and then you'll be happy. You'll be happy that, hey, I said one thing, and that person strived to do his best because of that. You don't want to make someone do their worst, especially when you're the one who's going to suffer from it. It's counterproductive, right? So that's that about that. So the museums for the statues. Yes, I am sensitive to the fact that there's history there. I don't want to. There was some mention of cleansing of a nation, like you don't want to cleanse a whole nation of its history. I guess I'm also in the back of my mind and in front of your face touching on the fact that what kind of history does a nation have that doesn't fulfill the 7 obligations? And my Jewish people, we need to fulfill the 613. What kind of history do we really want to look back on? I'm 54 years old. Do I want to look back at the time when I wasn't fulfilling obligations? Not supposed to remind a Baal Teshuvah, someone who's a master of return to the 613. You don't want to remind him of his past, right? So maybe that's a point. Maybe you don't want to remind. Maybe you stick all these things in museums for those who are curious to find out about their past, and they can go in there and see everything there laid out with nice descriptions. Okay, this is what happened. Whatever. If you want to do that, I don't know if that's lashon hara. If we're talking evil speech about people. Another point was made that, they said the Bible, but I'm going to call it the Torah because you're talking about my Torah and you're talking about the stories in the Torah talk about how we Jewish people have messed up at various times and have not served Hashem properly. Now, that we're supposed to study every day. We're supposed to study the Torah every day. We're supposed to meditate on the Torah and think about everything. So Hashem puts that in our face. He wants us to see what we did wrong so that we learn from it and do the right thing. Now, I don't know if that's the same as a statue. You know, here we're forced to study the Torah to fulfill the 7 or 613. But again, that statue is a symbol of some violation of one of those 7 obligations. So that might not be good. So I'm just showing you how I'm thinking out loud, and I'm just weighing out all the data. I'd like to put it all on a subject or action analysis chart, what, why, how. Eventually I'll get to that point, and I will thoroughly go through every issue, and then I could weigh it out. And then I'll prioritize everything. Even on the what, why, how chart, I will prioritize things in order. Excuse me. You know how you have, I was trying to share with you there's like 36 obligations that if they're violated, you get death by heaven's hands, you get chores. So it's good to know that would take top priority on the analysis sheet. So if it's a violation of an obligation that gets death, so that would go higher than something that only gets a flogging, a whipping, right? So, and that's how I would organize it, with that type of sensitivity and prioritization. Okay? And then it's easy to make decisions like this. That's why I was trying to tell you these 10 mind exercises I think are crucial, that we should master them. Just like we master our bodies and try to get in good shape physically, we need to be in the best shape mentally, even more importantly, so that we make good decisions. Obviously, we've made some poor decisions with lack of awareness, or else we wouldn't be plagued with a virus, a punishment. So that's just proof. You know, I'm going to say something else to my Jewish colleagues. A Gentile person was observing the show, a nice person, and made a comment, "Where are my Jewish colleagues?" And I gave this a lot of thought. I didn't give any answer to the person other than a love. I always give my love, that I acknowledge the comment. I appreciate the awareness that you have and the support that you were trying to give forth. I did not have an answer, and I think sometimes it's better to be silent than to say anything. And I guess I have many answers, but none of them are presentable to say because for various reasons. But I will say to my Jewish brothers and sisters, okay, take this to heart. I love you so much. And specifically my Orthodox brothers and sisters. If we are now in the year 5780, 2020 in secular false time, right? The correct year is 5780. I was saying to you that, I forgot the other point. That, boy, I'm sorry I'm talking longer. Forgive me. Just bear with me. Let me just pour out my guts. I only speak once a week on these issues, and they're so important, and I think they're helpful. I think it'll help somebody. At least let me do it for Hashem so I can... He gave me all these thoughts. Let me convey them so that they help for His sake. It's always for His sake, but for your sake too, and our sake, so that we can get rid of this virus. There's a time period coming up next week. It's the 3 weeks. Begins with a fast for the Jewish people and ends with a fast on Tisha B'Av. And a lot of heavy calamities, a lot of terrible things have happened throughout history. Before I was born, and even I could tell from the time I was born until now, I've witnessed things always happening during that time period. It's a very rough time period. Be careful. If any is a time period where you should start to take to heart the 7, 6, 13, and 10 obligations, it's now, right before we get to that 3 weeks, because terrible things happen in those 3 weeks. And just don't say I didn't tell you so. And yet, with the right actions, if we choose to do the right things, fulfill the 7, 6, 13, and 10, we could turn around that whole time period and actually make it be a time for good rather than a time for punishment. Instead of a time for pain and suffering, it could be a time for joy in the service of Hashem. So I'm just letting you know that, giving you the heads up. It's like next Thursday it starts, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't bring my calendar with me, but I think it's down there for next Thursday. And then it ends about 3 weeks later on a so it starts with a fast for the Jewish people, ends with a fast. It's a very dark time. It's one I'm not a big fan of that 3 weeks. It's like, as far as mood goes, as a sensitive musician, it's a very, one who emotes, who has to emote and be in touch with his emotions, I feel it's a very dark time. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. I don't dislike anything that Hashem does. If I have to say for the record, I appreciate that time. It has rectification in it, but it's going to be a rectification within this virus with it, which is a rectification. So it's going to be darkness within more punishment, punishment within punishment, and a time of fasting, and it's like a crescendo of fasting and mourning, and leads to the final fast day, and it's just very, I don't want to say emotionally draining, but it's very, we're giving our whole heart to realization of that we're messing up here, and that we got to serve Hashem properly. So we should take that to heart. So I'm just telling you that it's coming, okay? And don't think you can escape it. You can't escape Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I don't care if you're a Gentile or a Jew who's not in the know, who doesn't know about his 613 obligations, or a Gentile who doesn't know about the 7, or doesn't know about the purpose of life. If you guys don't know that, doesn't mean that it changes anything. Just because you don't like punishment and reward doesn't mean you get rid of punishment and reward by not being aware of it. It's still there, and we still suffer it. You got to wake up. This is the logic, the reality of our existence. We have reward and punishment. This is the way this world works. This is the way He set it up. There is punishment and reward. And then in practice, we don't focus on the reward. We're doing things to make Him happy, but we certainly don't want to be punished. We want to make Him proud and do things, fulfill the obligations, so He doesn't have to resort to punishment. Fine. All right. Did I say enough? Did I miss anything? I give you, what is it? So 2 hours of Torah. Sorry. Sorry. I gotta apologize. In 2 hours, you're going to focus on Hashem. You won't be able to focus on all the pleasure-seeking of life. Oh, excuse me. Oh, all right. Focus on Hashem for 2 hours of your life. Some of you, that's all you got. Okay? Hold on. All right, guys. Stay with me. Thank you for coming. All right, so we're on obligation number 176. Okay, so these are the obligations, the 613 obligations for the Jewish people. Anyone could convert to become Jewish. We don't force anybody, but any of you Gentiles, if you want to do more for Hashem than the 7 obligations, you can convert and become Jewish and take on the 613. Okay? But, we Jews cannot convert out. Once born Jewish, that's it. You're Jewish and you've got 613 obligations, 613 obligations, whether you like it or not. Gentiles have 7 obligations, whether you like it or not. All right, obligation 176, a metzora. A metzora is one who has tsera'as, an infection. It's like, it's a skin infection, but, it's funny. It's funny that's the first obligation we're studying today, and we're dealing with a virus, and we're suffering a virus. We're similar in being plagued by something, being punished by Hashem. So 176, a Metzorah. Do bring an offering when you are healed. So when Hashem heals you, you need to bring an offering. I guess when you're through with that punishment, the punishment has passed. I don't know when we're going to be through with this virus. When the punishment will pass. Then we probably, not that we're able to bring sacrifices or offerings now, and not that I'm a big, I'm a very animal sensitive individual, that's all I'll say. I'm working on, resolving all my concerns along with what the truth is and trying to find the right path within the truth. That's compromising to the animals, and yet, if the animals have to be used to clean us, to cleanse us, it's a terrible thing, but I guess if that's what has to be done, I don't know what to say. I reserve the right to give an opinion later when I know the whole Torah. Okay, so when you are healed. Source, Vayikra 14:10, punishment is a positive precept. 177, do declare a house with tzara'as, ritually unclean. So when you see the uncleanness of that house, you declare it unclean. I think the Kohen does that, if I'm not mistaken. Source is Vayikra 14:35, and the punishment is a positive precept. 178, man with a gonorrheal discharge, do follow the laws of the Torah. Source Vayikra 15:2-3, punishment is a positive obligation, and kores with a question mark. I think you get death by heaven's hands there, if I'm not mistaken. 179, man with a gonorrheal discharge, do bring an offering when you are healed. Source, Vayikra 15:13-14, punishment, positive precept, and lack in atonement, and woe to you if you don't do this. Woe to you, according to Hashem and the Sefer Chinuch in Hashem's name. 180, man who discharges semen, do follow the laws of the Torah. Source, Vayikra 15:16, punishment, no need for immersion today, yet good, and it's a blessing, because I'm not sure why that is now. I know we have mikvahs, but I don't know if, whatever, we'll get to it when we get to it. I'm just trying to get us on the target, and we'll get on the center of it later on as I continue to study. 181, woman with menses, do follow the laws of the Torah. Source, Vayikra 15:19, punishment, positive precept with some question marks. 182, woman who discharges, do follow the laws of the Torah. Source, Vayikra 15:25, punishment is a positive precept, kores, and a negative precept in parentheses. I wasn't so sure. 183, woman who discharges, do bring an offering when you recover. Source, Vayikra 15:20-29. Punishment is a positive precept and remains lacking in atonement. Okay. 184, Kohanim, do not enter the inner sanctuary except at an instance of temple service. The source is Vayikra 16:2, and the punishment is death by heaven's hands. The Kohanim are held very responsible because they're doing the highest level of service that they can do. They're in the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, and they're in the area where the Ark of the Covenant is, and the Holy of Holies, and they're held very responsible by Hashem to make sure their service is quite accurate and done properly. Okay, so the source is Vayikra 16:2, and the punishment is death by heaven's hands. 185, Kohen Gadol, and he's even higher than the regular Kohen. The Kohen Gadol do carry out the temple service on Yom Kippur. The source is Vayikra 16:3. Okay, that's 185. The source is Vayikra 16:3, and the punishment is unknown. 186. Do not slay holy offerings outside the sanctuary forecourt. There's certain areas for doing the offerings, and outside is not right. It's not what Hashem wants. Source, Vayikra 17:3-4. Punishment is kores. Okay. 187. Do cover the blood after the ritual slaying of a wild animal or fowl. do cover the blood after the ritual slaying of a wild animal or fowl. That's obligation 187. Sources, Vayikra 17:13, and the punishment is a positive precept. Hold 1 second. Excuse me. All right, guys. Oh, one more thing. Okay. All right. Okay. 188. Do not have pleasure with any woman who is ranked an erva. An erva. Hashem made me not remember what that word means right now. Erva. Just letting you know that it exists, and I know that this obligation is important. I think it applies right now, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it's one of the 7 obligations, too, for the Gentiles. Source, Vayikra 18:6, the punishment is a flogging, a whipping. 189, do not be intimate with your father. Okay, now we begin all the the intimate obligations. This is 189, do not be intimate with your father. Source, Vayikra 18:7, punishment is death by stoning. Okay, Hashem doesn't want these sexual relations that are improper. 190, do not be intimate with your mother. Source, Vayikra 18:7, punishment is kores, death by stoning also, possibly. Kores and death by stoning for various levels of transgression. 191, do not be intimate with your father's wife. Source, Vayikra 18:8, punishment, kores, and death by stoning. So that could be a wife that's not your biological mother, right? If I'm not mistaken. These are some of them are a little tricky. You got to know the insights from the written Torah there, how to deduce from the pasuk, how somehow one word can change the meaning here and what the obligation is. And I'm not familiar with. I heard that it's said. I know that it exists, but I don't know what they are. Good. For your good, for my good, for our good right now, it's good that I don't know what it is. All right? Just getting us on the target. 192. So do not be 191. Do not be intimate with your father's wife. Source, Vayikra 18:8. Punishment, kores, and death by stoning. 192. Do not be intimate with your sister. Source, Vayikra 18:9. Punishment is kores. 193. Do not be intimate with your son's daughter. Source, Vayikra 18:10. Punishment, death by burning. Death by burning. So there's a reason why it's burning. I don't know what it is. 194. Do not be intimate with your daughter's daughter. Source, Vayikra 18:10. Punishment, death by burning, with a question mark. A couple of question marks. 195. Do not be intimate with your daughter. Do not be intimate with your daughter. Source, Vayikra 18:10 equals logic, and I put a question mark. I wasn't sure, but again, I think that's one of those instances. I think I saw it there, and I had a question mark. Punishment is death by burning again. 196. Do not be intimate with your sister on your father's side. With your sister on your father's side, who is your father's wife's daughter. Okay. Vayikra 18:11, punishment is kores. Okay. 197. Do not be intimate with your father's sister. Your father's sister. Source, Vayikra 18:12, punishment is kores. 198. Do not be intimate with your mother's sister. Vayikra, source, Vayikra 18:13, and the punishment is kores. 199. Do not be intimate with your father's brother. Do not be intimate with your father's brother. Source, Vayikra 18:14. Now, unless stated otherwise, I believe these all apply to a male, a Jewish male. He's the subject of the obligation. He's the one who's being obligated. If it says woman, I wrote woman. We'll get to him. 199, do not be intimate with your father's brother, source Vaker 18:14, punishment, death by stoning, Kores as well. 200, do not be intimate with your father's brother's wife. Father's brother's wife. That would be your aunt, right? Source Vaker 18:14, father's brother's wife, right? 18:14, punishment, death by strangulation, and Kores. Okay, just to look ahead, because like for instance, just to let you Jewish women know, here it says 2:11, women do not be intimate with an animal. Okay, whatever. So I knew that was the subject. The subject is the women were being obligated in the obligation. All right, that's the 200. So it didn't take too long, and yet we covered it, and I think that's about it. All right, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Fulfill the 7 obligations, the 613 obligations, and the 10 steps to immortality. That's our safest bet. That's what the purpose of life is. We're here to fulfill those obligations in this test world. Things are happening to us in this test world every day, every second of every day. There's no way to avoid obligation fulfillment. You have a situation come that Hashem sends with circumstances, and you have to respond to it by knowing the Torah. You got to know the obligation that you have the opportunity to fulfill, and it could be multiple obligations. Know them all, and then fulfill those obligations in the face of that adversity. That's how this world is structured. You choose to do the right thing when your Yetzer Tov is telling you what the right thing to do is, and your Yetzer Hara is telling you what the evil thing to do is, not the right thing. And you got to use your free will to identify with their Yetzer Tov and choose the right thing. And this happens every second of every day of our life. There's no way to escape that reality. That's the truth of this existence. So if we do the right thing and fulfill our obligations, He can take away this virus and we can stop walking around like zombies. I love you. Yeah. Let me see. No. Let me see. Okay. All right, guys. You've been listening to the Truth Seekers show, the show that's specifically designed to help us to fulfill the purpose of our life in this world properly, our life purpose in this world properly, by giving information, motivation, hopefully some pleasure, and a lot of healing. I've been your host for the evening, Rabbi Eliezer Karp. I've tried my best to give you the truth with love and kindness, and I hope you take it that way. I thought of something that I may have missed. I was talking to my Jewish brothers and sisters. The obligations. Hashem made me float over it, and He's not giving it to me now. So I just touched on it. I didn't say what it was, but I had maybe a point to bring up with my Orthodox Jewish brothers and sisters, but it's nowhere to be found in my head right now, so I guess you got off easy. Whatever. I don't know what... Let you think about what maybe He would want me to tell you. I know what it was. We've tried everything else. You've tried it your way. You've tried it with the 16th century, 17th century garb, the trying it your way, your interpretation of the Torah. I believe I have a fresh interpretation of the Torah that is accurate within a Masorah, and I think it's logical and sound and makes sense how we should think, feel, speak, and act. And with an act, how we should dress, how we should look, how we should present ourselves, how we should relate to our fellow human beings fellow Jews and fellow Gentiles, how we need to help them learn our Creator's Torah. And I believe my way is the correct way, and I'm on the right path. I can feel it. I can feel Hashem is guiding me. And I guess my point to you is that it's the year 5,780. We've been through 5,780 years. We received the Torah in the year 2,448. It's about 3,000 some odd years till now. And the whole world doesn't know the Torah yet properly. They know it. They've stolen it. They're thanking it. They don't get a proper Masorah that way. They don't get a proper unbroken chain of teaching. So how are they supposed to know what the truth is? So it's our job to teach them. So I'm just letting you know, no pressure, not asking you to do anything. In fact, if anything, maybe I'm saying, I don't want to say this because I appreciate your help whenever you help, my Orthodox brothers and sisters, in response to that comment, that very nice comment by, I believe, a Gentile friend of ours who listens to the show and wanted to know why you guys don't chime in and are more supportive. But I think you, on the very, I know you have plenty of reasons. I know you have your reasons. I don't agree with any of them, to be honest with you. Even if you think they're good, you got to do what you got to do. I guess that's your business. But I just want to tell you that I think we've tried everything else. And again, I think I've said this before. Let's try this. You know, sometimes you try something a million times and it doesn't work. So try something a little different. I remember when President Obama was trying to open relations with Cuba, and he said something like that. You know, I don't know if that whole endeavor of his worked or it did. I don't know. I think we have better relations with Cuba now, I think, to my understanding. I don't know that it's been any worse, I don't think, but I hope it only should get better. Every country should relate to each other nicely, like friends, colleagues. We're all helping each other survive this thing called life and fulfill the purpose of life. So we should be working together to do that. So we shouldn't be fighting with each other. We shouldn't have, for you guys for you leaders who may have, who have some type of concept in your head that you need to be a dictator or something, or I wouldn't practice that type of approach because you got Hashem. He's the only dictator here. So wake up. You think you're going to get away with doing anything? You're not an island unto yourself. You're not going to be able to dictate to a group of people and get away with it without Hashem, you know, knowing if you're hurting people or persecuting people, all those people have to do is to cry out. And even if they don't cry out, I think Hashem is aware of people's suffering and pain. And he puts an end to things pretty quickly, you know. So I think you should wisen up. We should all be loving and kind and humble and work together. But to my colleagues, my Jewish brothers and sisters, Orthodox Jewish brothers and sisters, you know, you try everything else. I'm trying something new. I've tried it before. I think that was just to show you what I had intended to do. I think Hashem, and then he made me kind of bow out of that whole thing because it wasn't, people weren't listening to it. I was surrounded by pleasure seekers that didn't want to change, and I guess Hashem didn't want to make it work. So I backed off, and then I went back into my studying, and I'm still doing studying. But then he brought this virus out, and it brought me to the fore. I felt that I could help, and that I should try to do something to help. I know the answers, I know this information, and I know it can help. I don't want to sit by and watch people die. That's not right. Especially when you could say something and then wake somebody up. And when push comes to shove, they'll change. Pleasure seekers become, what's the old saying? There are no atheists in a trench. What was it? No atheists in a. When your life is being threatened, you start to realize there's a God pretty quickly. There are no atheists in a foxhole. I think that was the old expression. So that has some truth to it, you know. So we're trying something new. If you can help, fine. You don't want to help. So then on the other end, look, I'm a one-man show. I do my own shtick. I got my own way about this. I got my own way, my own derech, within a derech of a proper Masorah and within mainstream Torah, and I'm sensitive to everybody, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody. And I'm trying to help everybody, and I'm trying to bring issues up that need to be talked about which need to be discussed. So I think, if you can help me sometimes and chime in, give a word of support, fine, it's fine. But if you don't want to, you don't feel comfortable, I don't want you to be uncomfortable. I love you guys so much, my Orthodox brothers and sisters. I could still taste the gefilte fish at your Shabbos table. It was delicious, and I appreciate it. Not that I'm into meat and fish now anymore, but I'm just trying to say you were so kind to me in my formidable years when I was learning the Torah, and I owe it all to you. Whatever I know, I'm trying to, that's why I have to be sensitive. I don't want to, not here to criticize you with a heavy hand. I'm just trying to tell you, you're appreciated if you want to say something. If you don't want to and you don't feel comfortable about it, look, you might not think I know enough. Okay. Look, I know what I know. It's the same thing with, music. My mom wants me to play a song. If I don't know the song, I don't know the song. I got to be honest. I can't fake the song. I can't fake Hashem's mitzvahs. I'm trying my best to do them at whatever level I know them. I know some things you guys don't know, and I know a lot, and then there's some things I don't know that you guys, the klal, the masses, know more than me, and I'm trying to learn them. So I do know a lot of things from the Masorah that you don't know, and I try to teach them here and there and share them and help us. So, take it for what it's worth. If you don't want to know it, that's your business. It's between you and Hashem. I'm just here trying to help. Doing my mitzvah, trying to save lives, trying to serve him, make him happy. If I wasn't making him happy, I wouldn't do it. If I thought that this was going to make him uncomfortable in his world or do something wrong, I mean, who the heck am I to try to make the boss uncomfortable? I certainly don't want to make anyone comfortable. But, so that's it. I love you guys, and let's try to do the right thing and get out of this virus punishment situation. All right, have a good night. Good night, guys.